Hello, 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 beautiful people. How are you? Today is October, I think it's the 11th. And I can't really check right now, but it's Wednesday. It's like October 11th, and I just landed in San Francisco. This week, or the remainder of this week, Wednesday through Friday, I'm going to be here at my job's headquarters for some fun in-person time with my team. So I'm actually trying to meet with them now. We got a little turned around because I landed in a different terminal than the two other girls I'm meeting. So yes, so that's what I'm doing. I'm about to go meet up with them, and then we're all going straight to the office, have on like a semi-work fit. Got like shoulder pads, but arms out, so throwing this little sweater and some leather pants. So I'll check in with y'all a little bit, but I just wanted to say hi. Hi, hello, hello. I know the last time y'all saw me, I was quite literally in the airport, about to come or meet my coworkers. So we actually have been in the office. It's still Wednesday, but it's about what time is it? It's 5:49 p.m. Pacific. So when I checked in with y'all, it was probably like around 10:30, 11 Pacific, because all of our flights landed at 10:30. So we've truthfully just been in the office, working / just talking, connecting. We've been working remotely together. I hit my 1 year. I hit it October 31st, Halloween of last year. Or I'm sorry, I hit it this year. That's when I started last year. So it's been a really good day, honestly. We've just been talking, connecting, getting stuff done together, which is amazing. So I'm in the room now, which I will show y'all because it's so cute. They gave me 2 beds, which I don't need, but it's a lot of freaking space in here, so we'll look at that in a second. But yes, we're all just kind of like chilling for a sec. We're gonna grab dinner together in a little bit, and honestly, I'm excited. I might hit my friend Stephanie, if you ever watch this, I love you, girl. Hit her up to see if she wants to like go to the bar for a quick drink, because we like our friends outside of work even. So just wanted to connect on some one-on-one time. But we'll see how much time we have. I want to like send suggestions to the group in a little bit, but it'll be really good. I wanted to like show y'all the office and stuff, which I might. I'm still trying to figure out like what the intent is, but I just wanted to bring y'all along with me on a work trip, because I said in my last vlog, like, I'm gonna talk to y'all more about work. I haven't decided, like I said, if I'm gonna talk about exactly where I work, just due to privacy reasons, due to just not knowing if I want to like be public with it. The corporate workspace can just be interesting, so I just always want to be mindful of those types of things, and just not overdo it. Really, that's so pretty. It's like making a sun on the ceiling. But yeah, so that's pretty much what's going on. Essentially what I do, I work in marketing in the fintech space, and I am a senior social strategist. That is my title. Essentially what I do is help to inform content strategy, help execute on those strategies, support my lead and director, really just all things social for our brand, and just thinking of creative opportunities to connect with our audience, and get even deeper ingrained in like culture as we know it, right? Because culture can be so many things. But yeah, I'm excited. We're all here basically for like 2024 planning, to get an idea of like how we want to attack the year next year. And it's honestly really dope because we have a lot of really cool opportunities coming up or coming through the pipeline that like are a really big deal. So I am excited. It's so funny because a lot of the work I do in my day job also corresponds with like what I do outside of work as like as a creator, but also some of the projects that we're doing in work are very close to like things like YouTube and the podcast. And so it's very much aligned. I feel like I'm definitely coming into my role here, and I'm just excited because it's been an interesting year. I have my thoughts about, you know, just being in the corporate space and what that's like, you know, but right now I'm rocking and rolling. I'm rolling with the punches, and I'm just glad to be having a more positive experience than I think I was initially, and not just even with this company, but just in general. I think I've really struggled with going back and forth, and I know my ultimate goals basically, but this is where God has me now, and this is where I want to make impact, because this is where he's called me to be. So all that to say, I'm so excited to be bringing you along. Obviously don't want to be a weirdo with my camera because this is still work, so we're gonna figure out how to show y'all the side of work that isn't, you know, that like it's appropriate to do so, but we'll figure it out, so y'all don't worry, y'all just stay along for the trip. But let's see this room though, because it's super cute. So I can tell y'all the name of the hotel. It's called the Clancy. It's so cute. Downtown, I don't know if this is called downtown, I don't know what it's called, but we're in basically downtown San Francisco. When you walk in the door here, you basically come into the bathroom. So it's like a full bathroom. I love the lighting, honestly. This is a closet. And so this is where like the iron is, the robe, little suitcase thing right there. And they have a full bathtub here, which honestly, it looks very clean. I love this backsplash here. It just looks very well kept, which I can appreciate. I never use this stuff, but you know, the shower gel and stuff that come with the hotel. And then my favorite is honestly the mirror. Like any mirror that's gonna have the light around it, you know you're gonna be looking good. And I'm gonna do a little bit of makeup tomorrow, just like a little face, because it's more of like, I'm sorry, I found a red spot on my face. I don't know what that's about. Also, LOL, my mic being turned that way, it's cool. It's because I'm always facing this way. But yeah, I'm gonna do like a little baby beat, pull my hair back some. I'm gonna show y'all my fit in the full length mirror. But yeah, that has a sliding door, lots of privacy. So this is the room. Y'all, this couch, I just sat on it. It's actually very freaking comfortable. There's a mirror here. So it's definitely giving like sort of Vegas vibes, but not all the way. I don't know which bed I'm gonna sleep in. I normally like, oh, y'all, this couch, it's crazy. I normally like sleeping on the bed furthest away from the door. Always make Cam sleep on the side closest to the door. You can't really see my fit because the lighting here is honestly just okay. I feel like they could have a little bit brighter light, but I kind of showed y'all earlier, I wore this top that has shoulder pads on it. It's from Forever. And it's basically like a little nude top. It's so cute because it's like you can dress it up or down, truthfully. I have on some brown leather pants that I love. Some Nike blazer low tops, which is going to be my go-to shoe this week, truthfully, because it goes with all the outfits I brought. And then just this H&M, oh, these are H&M as well. And then this H&M sweater that is so easy to throw on, but it still looks like somewhat professional. And I was comfortable on the flight because I did fly in like this. And then my earrings are Zara. I got 2 pair the week when I needed to go to that event, the Black Magic Reimagined. So there's a bigger one, and then these are the smaller ones. So, and then I have on my glasses so I can look smart. But no, honestly, it was too freaking early to put on contacts. And whenever it's too early before flights, I'd be like, we's not doing that. All right, y'all, well, I am about to head out. I probably will bring y'all with me. Oh yeah, I brought my little crossbody, so that's awesome. I might have to take my shoe thing off and my tripod and my mic, and I might just have to go raw dog it so that I can fit my camera in my bag. We'll see. But let me call Stephanie. Good morning, y'all. I am getting ready for the day. Just started a little skincare. So wrapping that up. I'm gonna do some very light makeup. I'm trying some new stuff today. Wait, why would I try new stuff on a day like this where I'm about to be with all my coworkers? I don't exactly always know why I do stuff like that, but you know. It's just a little skin tint. A friend of mine put me on the Maybelline Superstay. And then I have the Superstay powder. Because y'all, I don't use any powders in my routine. Like any powdered foundations. So I just wanted some stuff that would be light coverage. More light coverage. Than what I normally use. What happened was I ran out of my NARS. I use the NARS normally. Why do I even have it? I might have tossed it in Mexico because it was out. Yeah, I don't think I have it. But whatever the popular NARS is, I usually use that. But yeah, I do want a little light coverage. I want to do concealer. but I have like 15 minutes to get ready, really like 45. Also, I've been using these some days when my skin feels drier. This is the Course RX. This is their all-in-one, so it's like their moisturizer. This is my Holy Grail La Roche-Posay, the Triple Repair Moisturizing Cream. This is the GOAT. I feel like my layer be so protected. And then this was not moisturizing enough, but paired together, I got a very, very light beat going on, like very light. I didn't have the time to figure this out like I would have, but it's cute so far. It's just very light. I used the skin tint that I showed y'all earlier. I love the way it goes on. It's super even. I don't need eyeshadow with it, which is another reason I like it, because sometimes when you wear foundation and you don't have on eyeshadow, you look like a naked mole rat. So I was hoping to go against that. Just wanted to show y'all where we were so far. Ouch, I'm gonna put on my clothes. Clumsy and late, y'all trying to get to know me, but I'm gonna put on my clothes and come back. Hello my loves, how are you? I hope that you are well. Listen, it's been a few days since y'all last saw me. Truthfully, more than a few days. I want to say last time we chatted, I was coming back from my work trip in the airport from San Francisco. Y'all, that night I landed in Dallas. I knew it was my friend's birthday, but I literally had to come home, change, because I was supposed to bring an extra pair of clothes and did not. I took a nap because I was extremely tired from that week. And then I celebrated her birthday, and I had every intention on wrapping up this video the next day, but it's just been a whirlwind. I'm not even gonna hold y'all, it's been a whirlwind, but what I wanted to do was really just circle back on everything that y'all have just seen, because one, when I realized the whole like, I'm gonna take you to my job, or like come experience work with me, I think a lot of that was missing, truthfully, because one, I'm working, I'm like in the zone. Two, vlogging is still something that is very like personal for me, in the sense that I don't want to like bring the two worlds together or just ever make it feel like I'm being invasive in the workspace, which I'm sure y'all can understand and like relate to. So anywho, I have my water here. I wanted to take some time just to like basically talk about work, the corporate space, my journey so far, how I've been navigating the corporate space over the past couple of years since undergrad, and really just kind of like get into some of the nitty gritty. I have a few questions here that I feel like are very commonly asked questions, but also are very relevant in my journey. So that's what we're gonna do to kind of like wrap it all up. And truthfully, if you're wondering, if you've made it this far in the video and you're like, where does she work? Like, why aren't we talking about that? Truthfully, that is something that is still very, I won't say private, but it's something that I'm not 100% sure, like I want to merge, basically, like merge the spaces. I have mentioned before, I work in the social marketing space, social marketing, social strategy, digital strategy, like all the things, right, on the brand side. And a lot of what we do is in social. A lot of what I do on a personal level as a creator is on social. And so it's very easy, again, for the two worlds to merge, and for my own like sake and sanity, I try my best to like keep them apart. Yes, I have great coworkers and people that I work with and am building really strong relationship with, but it's not like common for me basically to want to just like merge the two, to like invite people that I work with in my life in that way. And that's something that you really do have to consider getting into all of this. And I don't know that people, like some people probably don't take as much thought or put as much thought into it. But for me, as a woman of color, a Black woman, like in the corporate space, especially like in the industry that I am in, it's just something that I want to be mindful and careful of. So let's dive in it. Grab your little drink of some sort or just get comfortable because we're gonna chit chat. We're gonna chit chat about corporate. We're gonna chit chat about work, my experience this far, where I see myself going. Hopefully I'm able to touch on some of the things that maybe you're experiencing as well. The whole intention here is just to bring like the humanization factor into just like the corporate world, and like the fact that we are all normal people. We're normal human beings and we live normal lives, day-to-day lives. And we have 9-to-5 jobs and we work. So yes, that's super important for me to shine a light on that part of my life because it's a huge part. So number one, as someone working in corporate, I'm working 9-to-5, like I mentioned before, 40 hours a week, sometimes more. And so to not acknowledge that, like I mentioned, big part of my life would just be crazy, because the reality is, like, when you are a creator, when you are spending a lot of time like creating content in front of the camera, for me at least, authenticity means showing up not exactly who I am in real life, because that's a very challenging task and it's something that I'm learning literally day in and day out, but showing up as real as I possibly can be, in a sense of like, this is what's really going on. Like, I'm not fabricating any truths. I'm not producing or creating a production out of my life and curating moments to be like the best moments. I really want to get out of that space that we've been in so long in social media, and really just bring authenticity back into our livelihoods. And for me, a big piece of that again is work. And so I have been, I think I'm going on my 6th year out of undergrad. So it's been, you know, we're kind of getting out of the post-undergrad stages. Truly, we're kind of getting out of saying that and just being like my corporate career, because I have built a career at this point. I currently work in, like I mentioned before, the social media space. I have honestly been in social media since I graduated undergrad, but I truthfully didn't get like into advertising, which is really what I do, advertising and marketing. I didn't get into this space until 2020. So if you listen to my podcast, if you watch the intro video on my channel, you might know that essentially I'm like, what might you know? I've told this story in so many places in so many ways, but I graduated undergrad in 2017. After that, I moved to LA, where I lived for a year, had many roles. I was a production assistant, I worked front desk, I did freelance social media, I was a personal assistant, executive assistant, you name it. Had a lot of great experiences, but ultimately ended up deciding that LA was not the place for me. So I moved back to Dallas, which is where I now live. And I started my career there. And so the start to my career here was a very slow one. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what industry specifically I wanted to be in, because a lot of what I ran into in LA was just kind of like, I won't say happenstance or coincidence, because clearly God has had his hand on my life, but it wasn't planned. It wasn't something that I put a lot of thought and effort into, truthfully, like to get started. It was kind of just like, you need money to survive. you want to learn what you love, you came here to work in entertainment journalism, like let's get as close to those things as possible. And so that's how it started. When I got here though, truthfully, in 2018, I don't know how much time I spent like not working, but I will say once I started, I actually ended up working in like the community that my parents lived in. And so it was like another front desk-esque like admin job that soon turned into communications. And so I was there for about 1.5 years. And I knew that that role was not serving me, but most importantly, like I knew that I was not fulfilling my purpose and what, number one, I went to college and got a degree for, but number two, what I knew I was capable of. Like the days were so mundane, I was wasting so much time, and I just wasn't living out the life that I knew I was capable of living, right? And so in 2020, when COVID hit, I got really serious, like basically when we went on lockdown, I got really serious about saving. Like thankfully, I was living at home. Shout out to my parents, living at home. I didn't have any major bills. I didn't have rent. My car was paid off at the time. Like didn't really have to buy groceries because again, living at home, and I had very gracious parents. I can't emphasize that enough because again, that's a very privileged situation, but I was able to save a lot. We got multiple stimulus checks that year. I didn't have any bills. So I pocketed a lot of money. We weren't going anywhere. And so I had built up a nice healthy savings to say I didn't have any expenses at the time. And essentially what I did was I decided to quit July of 2020. And from July to almost, honestly, like it was really more like August. So from August to May of 2021, I did not have a job, y'all. And when I say I would have never imagined that I would have gone 10 months without a job, I kid you not, I just knew I was gonna have a job the next month. I was so confident in quitting. It wasn't, it was something I prayed about, but I don't think it was something that was like God ordained. It was one of those things where it's like you use your free will and then God cleans it up because he's just a good and gracious God, okay? Because again, I genuinely did not plan it. I had been uncomfortable for a while and I just kind of jumped out on faith is what I thought back at, you know, in that time. And I still don't regret it necessarily. It just was a hard time because I think a lot of what, and it may have been time for me to quit, but I also think a lot of what I learned was that nothing is on my timing, right? Because I thought I would have a job in 10 months, I genuinely was struggling. Like, thankfully had saved money because that came in such, like, it came in clutch because I was able to survive. But I also ended up having like part-time opportunities or like little gigs here and there. So I was able to stay afloat and maintain. But I think a lot of what I experienced was a lot of emotional stress, and like it took a very strong emotional toll on me. Like I don't think I've ever felt that low in my life. And there was just a lot I had to learn from that. Like God had to strip me of a lot of things, which maybe we can dive in at another time, but it was just a lot that I went through during that time in terms of like how I viewed myself, what I connected my worth and my purpose to, how I viewed the importance of material things, why I wanted to make a high salary, like all of these things that ultimately led me to landing my first role in like the real corporate space, I would say. But because it was it wasn't post-COVID, technically we were still going through it. My first job ended up being my first remote work from home job, bless. And so that was like, it wasn't an entry-level job in advertising, but it was like one step above. So I was a communication strategist working for an ad agency out of San Francisco, which I also won't drop any names, but that was my first high-paying job. I went from making like $35,000 at this front desk, 35 to 45 at this front desk type of role, working in like HOA, homeowners association, to making about 70 to 75K in my first position in advertising. And the reason why I'm throwing out these figures, number one, is not to flex or emphasize money or anything like that, but the whole while I was in this role, my first job back in Dallas, one of the main things that I wanted to prove to myself was that I was worthy of making more income. A lot of what I experienced during those 10 months when I said it was a big emotional toll, a lot of what I experienced was really around the way that I viewed how worthy I was when it came to making money. Like there was a lot of self-work that needed to be done. God had to do a lot of work on me. And I also had to be stripped of connecting money or making money synonymous with material things, because it's one thing to want money for purpose-driven things, right? Because money is a tool, it is a resource at the end of the day. We can't argue that. It's another to want money for material things, to flex, to automatically get a new car, to buy the latest bag. You know what I mean? Like, I could go down that rabbit hole, and that is what God had to work on me, work out of me, truthfully. Because initially it's like, oh yeah, I want to make 6 figures so I can do what? Had no plan, had no idea. And so when I landed this role, the first thing I did, or even before that, like when I didn't have the job yet, I was literally preparing for what my lifestyle would be like living at home with no income. How would I be saving? What would I be putting money towards? What would I be paying down in terms of debt, you know, for any debt that existed at the time? Like, I was very intentional about understanding, like, this is a resource to get you to the next point, right? To get you to from point A to point B. But none of my priorities consisted of how can this make me look better to other people. I don't know, I just felt like I needed to say that because that was a true identity that I had. Like, you know, like if I'm being 100% candid and 100% honest, like that was something that I really struggled with. So anyway, moved from that role, or moved into that role. I ended up only staying at that agency for a few months because there was a situation where my manager who hired me, ended up leaving like 2 to 3 months in the role. And the environment just got super tough, right? Because there was lack of leadership ahead of me. There was, because of that, lack of communication. It was my first role in advertising, so I had a very small understanding of the industry in general. Worked a lot of overtime. I ended up being burnt out, but what I will say, and I still believe this to this day, I did not complain once. I was just very much heads down, grinding it out, really just on one side excited for this time in my life because it was something new and something I had worked towards, and on another side really just trying to learn how to operate and navigate these spaces, right? It was also my first real corporate job. So I'm dealing with people who have been in this industry forever and they know the game and they have their ways. And so now I'm working to set boundaries for myself, to advocate for myself, to build relationships, working in a remote industry when you're not in the office, like all of these very difficult things, having to learn them early on in my career and really just like knock them out. Like that was probably the first time in my life where I've ever experienced such like an intense atmosphere in such a very like focused amount of time. Basically, like your girl low-key used to be stressed and I didn't realize it. I will say I didn't complain, but I think a part of me was just like, we're gonna grind this out because this is what you pray for. This is what you've been laying low for, heads down for the past 10 months, so we're gonna work it out. And literally, I kid you not, the next role I had was not something I had to apply for, not something I even saw on the internet. It was due to a connection that I had made at my current agency. They had an opening, and so I probably was at my first agency for about I would say maybe like 10 months, maybe like 8 to 10 months, and then I went to a bigger shop. This one was based in New York. It was my first 6-figure paying role, and I just remember feeling like expectations exceeded. Like I thought my first agency would be it. I had been applying to jobs for months. I had been getting interviews and making it to the last round at big companies, at small companies, getting told no. Like my worth was just in shambles. Like when I say God had to work on me and those during that time where I didn't have a job, like it was all to prepare me for what I would be experiencing in the future. And so I literally got to the second agency. So 10 months, we're applying to jobs. Land my first agency role as a communication strategist. About 10 months, 8 to 10 months later, I move on to this bigger agency. I land a role as a senior social strategist. It was like a hybrid role, senior social influencer strategist. So now we're working with bigger name brands, right? The first agency, I got like my first experience with some pretty dope brands, but the second one, I'm working with like the city of Las Vegas, Angel Soft Tissue, Gillette, Venus, like very much like global, worldwide known brands. And it was honestly a really good experience. I came in knowing a few people that I had worked with previously. But by the time I left, like, cause plot twist, I'm not there anymore. By the time I left, I have made some really great relationships, some of like the best relationships I've made in my career to this day. And it was a really great learning experience. That shop, from what I remember, was very flexible, very fluid. There were a lot of things like anywhere, you know, that you're like, I don't love this thing. But looking back on it, like, hindsight 2020, it was a very great experience. I ended up being there for almost a year, but I just wanted something different for my career. I think the one thing, so up until this point, the one thing that had been lacking in my career very greatly was like growth trajectory, like clarity on growth trajectory, right? Where am I headed in my career? How do I know, you know, what growth looks like? Management, I think even at both places, management was just lacking in the sense of capacity. It wasn't a clear structure around, you know, teams and roles and responsibilities. And those things are very important when you're in your career, because you need some type of idea around, you know, not necessarily what your day-to-day looks like, but where your value is, how you're using your strengths. Are you using your strengths to the best of your ability? You know, how you're contributing. Do you feel like you're contributing in a way that makes sense for the brand, makes sense for the agency, makes sense for what you want to bring to the table? Are you working on projects that you enjoy? You know, like, in your eyes, what does balance look like? So there's so many things that you learn to take into consideration. And at that point, I found that there were just gaps. There were just gaps in areas where I knew I wanted to take my career seriously. Like, we're at year probably like 3 or 4 at this point. And so I'm like, okay, I know that my trajectory, like, I'm starting to get a vision. I'm starting to get a sense of advocacy for myself. And there's a level of, not control that I want to have, but there is a level of like steering, right? There's a level of steering that I want to be able to have. And I'm no longer in the early stages. I'm not going with the flow, right? There's just like a sense of urgency that I now have for my career that I want to be able to have a little bit more control in. And so that was a great experience, but I ended up, one of the people that I worked with there left our agency, went to another company, and then a few months later after they had left, they hit me up and were like, hey, we have a social strategist role open, a senior social strategist role open, that I think you'd be a great fit for. Let me know if you're looking for new opportunities, and you can shoot me your resume. And so essentially, that is how I got where I am now. I definitely didn't like apply for the role in terms of like, I wasn't looking for a new role, right? I had to go through a process, because that is like, that's how the process works. But I definitely had to interview. But it went to show me from the 10 months of not having a job, like quitting, betting on myself, not having a job to 10 months. During those 10 months, y'all, I did everything in my power to get a new job. I did everything that I could possibly control, from optimizing my LinkedIn, using my connections, taking one-on-one calls, going out to coffee with people, applying to 30 jobs a week. I did everything in my power, refreshing my resume, doing my cover letter a million times, and none of it worked until it was supposed to. Like, that was the biggest lesson that I could ever learn. And then every job since then, literally being based on a connection or knowing somebody, like, that is the ultimate testament in my life, at least. And maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Maybe it's a testimony, I don't know. But that's the ultimate testimony in my life that has shown me that, 1, I am not in control no matter how hard I try. 2, it's not always about what I want, when I want it, how I want it. And what I will say, in my career where I am now, this is the most content that I have ever been in terms of where my future is headed, because I have truly learned what it is like to serve in the capacity that I have been called to, steward over my job and my role, and just do that well. So let's talk about some of the things that don't look like serving or stewarding, because that also just hit my spirit a little bit. And I think what I was very clear on in my career was that I wanted to make more money. And I think a lot of times, especially like as Christian believers, for example, we feel we can look at making more money as a negative thing. And for me in particular, yes, I had negative associations with money, and a lot of what God, like I mentioned before a million times, a lot of what God had to work on me, a lot of how God had to work on me, but there we go, was disconnecting and peeling back those layers of why I wanted to work to make more money, so that when I got to this position, having made the most that I've ever made in my career salary wise, I knew how I would be stewarding over my finances. When I say this is the most financially literate I have ever been, this is the most financially responsible I have ever been, and this is the most purpose driven I have ever been with my finances in my life. And it's a process. And that process starts with breaking down the way that we think about money, the way that we associate ourselves with money, and also planning for how we want to leverage money as a tool, as a resource, so that when we get to that point, we already understand it. And there's a reason why I am more financially literate at this point, just because of a lot of the work I do is in the finance space, I will say that. And so I'm literally having to learn these things for my job. But as I have grown and matured, money has become less of this taboo topic and more about how I am stewarding over it, period. I think a lot of times what might happen is that we get so afraid of money that we don't learn how to use it as a tool. We don't learn how to leverage it to the best of our ability. And I had to really, really get out of that. And there were mistakes made along the way, like from the first role I had to, the first advertising role I had to the second, like I moved into my own apartment. And so there were moments where I may not have been stewarding over my money the best that I could have been, because I'm in a new space. I got new bills, y'all, I got a new car. And these were all, I won't say necessities, but like the car, it was a necessity. And it felt like a decision that I could make at the time, and not something a statement that I was trying to make at the time. You know what I mean? And so, anywho, back to the career, what I do now, that's kind of like how my journey has looked so far. And I will say that although working in the corporate space 9 to 5 is not a trajectory that I see myself doing forever, right? For the foreseeable future, yes, but forever, I know that it's not something that I will be doing. Like I mentioned before, I am content because I know that this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think that is so important, because there is a difference between being, and that's what I was getting at when I was like, well, let's talk about what's not contentness, right? There's a difference between contentness and settling. Like the line is so fine that sometimes you have to ask yourself the questions to really get to that point of understanding, am I settling, or do I need to just be practicing contentness? And I think God played a huge role in that. But when I quit that first job and went on my 10-month hiatus, that was not by choice. I'm gonna always emphasize that, y'all. I was struggling. But when I quit my job and went on this hiatus, one of the biggest things that I don't regret is quitting. Like I'll have moments where I'm like, I know I made that decision by myself, but I just don't regret it, because I was really settling at that point in my life. No matter which way I spun it, no matter, how optimistic I wanted to be, no matter how much I tried to just make it work, I knew that there was more within me. There was more purpose within me. There was more creativity. There was more strategy. There was more exposure. There were more things that I knew not only I was capable of doing, but gifts that God literally put within me that I needed to serve in a different capacity. And so that is what I mean when I say there's a difference between being content and settling, because I have been in a phase where I'm like, you're settling, but I've also been in a phase where I'm like, you need to learn contentness, because it's just not your time. It's not your time. And for me, money was a big one. Again, because I needed different resources. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do that money would provide access for, moving out and living on my own, because I'd been with my parents, at this point, since I moved back from LA, since I got back from college. My car was absolutely failing, and I knew I needed to upgrade, and that's not something I can look for my parents to do, right? And so these are just two very practical examples and things that I've experienced over the past year to two. But yeah, I mean, like, corporate has given me so many experiences, and this is probably how I'll start to wrap it up truthfully, but corporate has given me so many experiences that I would not have been able to experience otherwise. Like this journey that I'm on, the different roles that I've had, the different people that I've met, what I've had exposure and access to, like at each level, it has seriously blessed me so much. And I could not be more grateful for the experiences, simply because I think that no matter how I try to spin it, it's like I'm able to learn and apply in different ways that I just wouldn't have been able to if I didn't have the exposure. And so right now, I would say in terms of navigating corporate, I'm in a season where I'm really trying to show up as my authentic self, and I won't say 100% myself, because I also have my own opinions on that, but show up as my authentic self in the workplace, right? Like, this role, I will say, is the first role where the culture was a bit of a cultural shock to me. Like, they do things a bit different than what I'm used to, and so learning how to show up as myself in a different way than maybe I didn't really have to think about before, you know? And I think that's another area that has stood out the most. Outside of like contentness, is just like showing up unapologetically and using your gifts is another area that I think we oftentimes don't speak enough about. I think especially being, again, like a Black woman in the corporate space, especially like a white male dominated space, white woman dominated space, for example, you hear people talk about it, right? You hear people talk about having to dim their light and not really knowing how to show up as themselves. But when you go into these spaces and you start to kind of like experience what that is like, it really does begin to test your perspective, like your entire perspective in the space. And what I will say is, when I first entered this new role, that was something that I struggled with for months. And I really had to take that to God in prayer. I really had to just be more open about it in things like therapy, because what I don't want to ever do is blame how someone else shows up for my reason for not being myself. And yes, well, I do believe that systemic racism is a real thing. Microaggressions are a real thing, for example. I can't necessarily say that those were things I was going through. It was just a very new space for me in particular. And so learning how to navigate that while also inserting myself in a new environment, like that's kind of like what I was experiencing and going through. And so again, lots of invaluable experiences. I will always stick beside the fact that what you're experiencing today is preparing you for tomorrow or the day after or the year after, because I truly believe that there is power in just being open-minded about like, what is this trying to teach me? Like, what is what I'm experiencing trying to teach me? Whether it's a roadblock, whether it's a good thing, whether it's new information. Really just getting curious in these spaces and retaining in these spaces and really just navigating them with confidence, right? That's something that it's probably something that you're always going to be learning. And so yes, like all those words, lots of words to say that where I am today is not an overnight success. It's something that I have put lots of blood, sweat, and tears into, and I don't have it all figured out. I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, like we could talk about my trajectory and where I see myself going. And the truth is, I don't have any answers. I'm no longer planning my career to the T. I'm no longer emphasizing climbing up the corporate ladder. I'm just being present. I'm letting God do what he does best. And I'm using my gifts. I'm showing up confidently. I am trusting myself and my instinct. I work in strategy. So a lot of strategy is rooted in hypothesis sometimes, and you have to ground it with insight, right? Like empirical data, I guess. And I'm learning lots of things around, what I just named, trusting myself, knowing that it's okay not to know everything, being comfortable with asking questions, with expressing boundaries, right? Finding a harmony in my lifestyle, like just getting very creative, and unlearning a lot of the negative thoughts and thinking that I've had about myself. But yeah, I just want to say thank y'all for watching. If you have any other thoughts or questions around corporate lifestyle, if you're navigating this journey yourself, I would love to talk. Hope you love this vlog, chit chat style content. My camera is trying to die on me, so we're wrapping it up. I will see y'all next time. We'll talk soon. Have an amazing day. Bye.